entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals who seek excellence, bringing the business classroom to you. It's the Business Builders Show. Here's Marty Wolff.
We still got a long way to go. Yes, we all got a long way to go.
Welcome to the Business Builders Show with Marty Wolff, the show for entrepreneurs, business owners, and business leaders. I'm Marty Wolff, your host for the Business Builders Show, and along with my executive producer, DC Taylor, we will be your guides on this learning journey. Let me tell you my super objective in being with you today. I want to enthusiastically share stories and information to inspire leaders. That's you, by the way, so you can inspire others. My guest with me today is my friend, John David Mann. Hi, John David Mann. How are you, sir?
Good day. I'm excellent. So nice to be here again.
Oh, it is great to have you back. We're going to be talking about a book that John has written, and I understand it's his 30th book. It's called The Latte Factor, Why You Don't Have to Be Rich to Live Rich. Let me introduce John David Mann. He rose to international prominence with his award-winning parable, The Go-Giver, which is co-authored with Bob Burg, which has sold nearly 1 million copies in 24 languages and has been hailed as, quote, one of the most important parables about business and life of our time. And that quote was from Adam Grant, who is the author of Give and Take. And it's praised by the likes of Arianna Huffington, Seth Godin, and Glenn Beck. And as I already mentioned, The Latte Factor is John David Mann's 30th book. Holy mackerel, you've been working hard for the last few years, John.
Well, I have been. I've been pretty head down on these little puppies. Yes, it's a pleasure. It keeps being a pleasure.
Yeah, we communicate back and forth, and you're very disciplined in your writing. So, The Latte Factor, it's written by David Bach and John David Mann. So, tell me about David Bach, and how did you guys get together to write this book?
David Bach. I've talked with a lot of folks about my books written with Bob Burg, and my partnership with Bob has been one of the great blessings of my life. I like to say Bob Burg ruined my career because I was on the way to be a Hollywood screenwriter when Bob corralled me into writing The Go-Giver with him, and it's changed the vector of my life. And Bob is the perfect business partner. I just have been so enjoyed and continue to my relationship with him. And every now and then, someone else comes into my life who's kind of like that. David Bach is like that. David Bach has been a phenomenal partner. But here's how it started. When Bob Burg and I wrote The Go-Giver back in the mid-2000s, this is like 2006, we were actually writing. It didn't come out until the end of 2007. At that point, David Bach was already a superstar. He had written the Automatic Millionaire, which he premiered live on the Oprah show in front of like millions of people, and that thing went to number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list, and it stayed there on the Times list for like 37 weeks or something. And he'd written Smart Women Finish Rich and Start Late Finish Rich and Smart Couples Finish Rich, and the guy was, like I said, a rock star, and I was just nobody. I was like the janitor of book sales. So it was like he was Elvis, and I was like an earthworm. Okay, that's kind of the kind of the scale.
All right,
I have the context here. So I had interviewed David for a magazine I'd written for, a business magazine, and I really liked him. When I first interviewed, this before The Go-Giver, I had written an interview with him, and I had approached that thinking, yeah, he's going to be like a savings guy. He's going to talk about 401ks, and it's not going to be very exciting, but here goes. And so I got on the phone with him, and he kind of blew me away because, yes, he was talking about dollars and cents and savings and 401ks and things, but what he was really talking about was things like your life mission, your life purpose. And at the end of our interview, he said, I'll never forget these words. This is like 20 years ago. He said, I believe that every one of us was put on this earth for a distinct and unique purpose, to do something that nobody else can do, and that most of us aren't doing it because we're too busy leasing and loaning our lives. My mission is to help millions of people own their lives so they can do what they were put here to do. And, a couple of years later, those words are still echoing in my mind.
Wow.
When Bob and I, isn't that wonderful? I just thought, who is this guy?
Yeah.
So I approached David, along with everybody else I knew who was an author, for endorsements for The Go-Giver when that book came out. And David gave us this amazing endorsement that ended up on the front cover of the original edition. And that's how our friendship started. And he was a big champion of The Go-Giver. He loved the book.
Sure.
And he approached me that first year and said, listen, I want to write a book about the Latte Factor, but not like my other books, like your book, like The Go-Giver, like a parable. I want to do that. Would you be interested? And, of course, I said, I'll check my calendar. No, I didn't say that. I said, yeah, I'm in. So
how many years ago was that? How many years ago was that, John?
That was 11 freaking years.
What took so long, man? You're a smart guy. What took so long?
I got lost on the way to the subway. No, what happened was, it was a perfect storm of unhappy circumstance. The first thing was his publishers didn't like the idea. His publishers parables don't sell, which of course is ridiculously not the case. But he couldn't get his publisher interested in the book, and then the economy collapsed. This is like late 2008.
Right.
And all of a sudden, David had a whole lot of brand new stuff to do. I think he wrote a book called "Fight for Your Money," and he changed his whole agenda in the sense of addressing the economic climate of that time. And I got very busy with other books, and our lives just went on. And so he had this pivotal event in 2015 that served to get the thing back on track, which was he went out to dinner with Paulo Coelho, who is the author of The Alchemist. One of the world's favorite books is like The Alchemist seems to be on everybody's one of my top favorite books lists. So the legendary author of The Alchemist, David had helped him to promote a new book in the U.S., and they went out to dinner, just the two of them, and drank well into the wee hours, apparently. And as they were, I don't know if there were tequila shots or beers or wine or what it was, but they were going back and forth, and Paulo said, tell me what you're doing. And David said, I love you, man. No, he didn't say that. David told him, here's my book and this book, but what I really want to do, Paulo, is I'd really like to write a story like your books about this Latte Factor idea, but my publisher just isn't interested in it. And Paulo fixed him with a glare and said, David, you must do it. And it was like one of those times where maybe something you've heard for years, but when the right person at the right time says it, you suddenly get it. He got it.
Yeah, when the student is ready, or when the audience is ready, or whatever words you want to use, and so that connected you guys. That led to what? Did he immediately contact you? Did you find a new publisher? What happened?
He contacted me and said, hey, listen, you still want to do that? I said, are you kidding? Now, this is me like 25, 28 books later. And I said, yeah.
I'm in. Yeah, I'm in, right?
I'm in. I'm still in. And, Marty, I had this germ of a story because back in 2008, I kind of started writing it in my head. And I had sort of the setup of the story, and it was still sitting there. This woman, 28-year-old woman, was still waiting for her story to unfold in my head. And it's like, I was so thrilled at the idea of getting to finally write this story.
Wow.
And I felt like I'd learned a lot in the 10 years intervening. So he said, let's just, instead of doing what we normally do, the normal process with a book, for David certainly, and for a lot of my books is, you write a proposal, you write a sample chapter, maybe an outline, you shop for publishers, somebody likes it, you decide on maybe the multiples bid for it, you end up making a deal, they pay you in advance, and then you write the book. And David said, let's not do any of that. Let's just write the book. Let's just write it, and then we'll go find a publisher. And I said, and what two words did I say?
I assume, okay.
I said, I'm in.
Yeah.
So or okay, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So we did. We wrote the book. And David was very involved in the writing, more so than most writers I've written, or co-authors I've written with. He was fantastic. He was very hands-on. He contributed a ton of ideas to the story, and we had a blast doing it. And we we had a bunch of publishers who all said, God, I want this. And we picked one. We got a great partner. I have loved working with them. And finally, after more than a decade in the making, here it is.
Here it is. It is called The Latte Factor. Subtitle is Why You Don't Have to Be Rich to Live Rich. David Bach and John David Mann. And you can find more about John David Mann by going to johndavidmann.com. johndavidmann.com. You know I'm a fan of yours. I've read several of your books. I follow you. I pay attention to what you say. So here's my question. I see a lot of John David Mann in this book. So tell me what's in here about John David Mann or from, and what's in here about David Bach? Like I could see, I could picture you writing this book. So talk to me about that.
It's so funny because I appreciate that, and it's interesting you say that because I can point you to dozens of people that I've exchanged with in David's Facebook group who will say they could see David Bach writing this book. It's
interesting.
That's the goal.
Sure.
And for me, the Go-Giver books are absolutely that way too. I mean, people who know me really well say, "Oh yeah, right, you wrote that." People who know Bob Burg really well say, "Oh my God, it's Bob Burg all over." It's it's a lot like, and kind of a weird analogy, but it's a lot like parents and a kid. It's like you see the DNA of both parents in there, and that's for me. That's the goal.
Interesting. Yeah. You see the DNA of both of you in it. Yeah. Wow. I love that analogy. So let's talk more about the book, if you don't mind. Let's talk more about it. There's a couple of there's a lot of characters in it. Talk to me about the maybe the key characters in it, and kind of it's also based on some 3 financial secrets, one of which really doesn't seem to have much about the 3 secrets of financial success. So talk to me about the main characters first.
Okay. All right. Good deal. So there are 2 principal characters. The hero of the book, if you will, is Zoe Daniel. Zoe is a 28-year-old woman, professional woman, living and working in New York City. She actually lives in Brooklyn. And her situation, I mean, Marty, you're not a 20-year-old woman. Neither am I. Neither are, I'm sure, many of our listeners. But everybody can relate to Zoe in some way.
Yep.
To some extent.
Yep. Absolutely.
Zoe's situation is she's got a decent job, and it pays not bad, although probably not as much as a lot of her readers think. She works for a magazine. But she struggles. She's got student loans. The student loan debt is crushing. She's got a credit card debt that's crushing. She can barely make her rent. And so it's a struggle. She brings work home every weekend and every night. And she's tempted by a higher-paying job uptown that she kind of thinks is going to be a little bit of a soul crusher, but it would pay the bills a lot more easily. And so she's just in the struggle. In the middle of it all, she's got this sort of feeling in the pit of her stomach that she can't quite put in words, but if she could, it would sound something like, what happened to my life? Where's the living part? It's like, when do I get to be Zoe and not just trying to set up Zoe's infrastructure? So that's the deal. It's partly financial. The book is about, it's about financial mechanisms to create freedom. But what it's really about is it's buying the freedom to live your dreams. And not your dreams as in what you'll do when you're 70 or 65 or 62 and a half, whatever that might be. But your dreams like that you could start this year, this month.
Yes.
Your ideal life. How do you start to live your ideal life in realistic circumstances? So she doesn't, of course, believe that's possible until she bumps into the second main character, who is the mentor in the story, is a guy named Henry, who is David Bach disguised as an elderly gentleman.
Got it. Okay, got it. Okay, that's interesting. That's really good. I love that. That's great. Well, you already answered the question I was going to ask. Who's the book for? In my mind, it's it's for everybody. Quite frankly, I'm older. I won't say how old, but I'm telling you, the lessons were absolutely profound. And side editorial comment from Marty Wolff, not from David Bach or from John David Mann. You can start any time. And don't you agree? Now, listen, there's 3 secrets to financial freedom in here. I'm not going to mention the 2, but it has to do with finances and stuff like that. You got to read the book. And again, the book is The Latte Factor. But talk to me more about this, the 3rd secret, live rich now. Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, so one of the challenges from a writer's perspective, one of the challenges of the book was to absorb everything David teaches and to call out of that, how are we going to express that in this book? Because David, you can hear him give talk. He may have seven principles or 5 principles or 4 of this or 12 of that or whatever. Yeah, he's got so much to teach that it takes many, many, many forms. So the first thing is, how do you create this? How do you distill his practical wisdom down into the simplest possible, as you say, 3 secrets of financial freedom? Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. And the 3rd, in a way, comes first, but because it's the most important. But it comes last in the book, and it comes last in the sequence because Zoe's not really ready for it. Frankly speaking, Zoe goes through this journey in the story, which is, I think, a journey a lot of us go through. The financial wisdom in the book, there's nothing that's all that. Maybe there are a few radical things in it, like he thinks budgets are ridiculous,
right?
But mostly the stuff, the things that are the real secrets, are things you've probably heard before. It's not radical or starkly shocking, but it's stuff that a lot of us have heard but never implemented.
Right.
We've never implemented it because it seems complicated, or because we don't get around to it, or because it seems onerous or intimidating, or whatever it is. And the power of David's teaching, this has been true for over 20 years, is that people hear him teach and they go out and they do it. He makes it doable. He makes it so practicable. It's the thing that's fantastic about him. That was our goal with this book. And we had the book in copy at our publishers. We get together in conference calls with the publisher's office, and there'd be like 5, 6, 7 people on the phone going, hey, listen, I got the manuscript this weekend, and my husband read it, and I read it. We sat down and talked about it, and Monday, here's the change. And they're like putting all these things into place like that week.
Yeah.
We haven't even finished editing the book yet, so we're excited about that.
Interesting.
So you asked about this last law, live rich now. Here's the fundamental idea of this. I think that so many of us don't really create the kind of financial potential that we could in our lives, that are available to virtually any of us. Don't take the steps to make that real because it seems abstract. The idea of retirement seems far away to most of us. I'm already over 60, and it still seems far away to me. But when I was in my 20s, it was like another universe, and 30s and 40s. So it seems distant, it seems far away, and also a lot of the things that we dream about, for many of us, seem increasingly unreal and increasingly impractical and untouchable. So there's this sort of gap, this chasm between our financial potential and our ideal lives and our dream lives and our fully fulfilled lives as an abstract and the realities of today and tomorrow and next week. And the purpose of this book, the goal of this book, is to erase that gap, eliminate that chasm, is to show you that there are ways that you can take the things that you really want to do with your life and you can put those in motion now. You don't have to wait. You don't have to, first of all, you don't have to be an expert in the stock market. You don't have to have 40 years of amassed savings. You don't have to hit the lottery. You don't have to have been born wealthy, or you don't have to have that incredibly high-paying job. You don't have to have the quantum leap, the big golden egg, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Where you are now, starting today in your current circumstances, current job, current income, current stress and bills and debts and all, you can start where you are and begin to build that dream life this month, so that you're actually changing the quality of your life now, not in decades.
Big lesson. My guest is John David Mann. You can find more about him at his website, johndavidmann.com. You will see that he's on all kinds of social media. John, I think we can also send them to the lattefactor.com, can we not, to the book website?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, indeed. So the website is simply the book title, with a the in it, thelattefactor.com. And David, I see David's got a podcast up there now about the book. He reads the first 3 chapters on the podcast. And, I should say that the book is intentionally simple. It's a story, not a manual. And, one of the reasons that David wanted to do it was that there are a lot of people who will read a book like The Go-Giver or The Latte Factor that are never going to pick up a 300-page book on finance. There are millions of those people, really. And so the goal was to make this book approachable. Read it. You can read it in an evening. Simple language to appeal to anybody. But because of that, there's a lot of detail that if you want to start implementing David's ideas in your own life, you'll have questions that you won't get all the detailed answers in this book. It's not a thorough how-to book. That's what his other books are for, and that's also what this site is for. He does Q&As, and he has a podcast, and he has some sort of financial literacy classes and all kinds of great video content. So it's like the Latte Factor is also a doorway to expanded material on that website.
Doorway. I love that.
Yeah, man.
That's strong. Well, you got my attention by telling me a story, and quite frankly, I don't know who does it any better than John David Mann, and now I'm going to pay much more attention to David Bach. So, John David Mann, thank you so much for being part of the Business Builders Show.
I am just delighted to be here, Marty. Thank you so much. You ask great questions. I love being here.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to the Business Builders Show. To learn more about me, and I'm Marty Wolff, go to MartyWolffBusinessSolutions.com. That's MartyWolffBusinessSolutions.com. To learn more about Kelly Hoey, go to her website, which is jkellyhoey.co. That's jkellyhoey.co. And of course, you can find Kelly and Marty on LinkedIn and Twitter. A reminder, you can find all our Business Builders shows on iTunes, Spotify, and on your favorite podcast app.
Bringing the business classroom to you. It's the Business Builders Show with Marty Wolff.